everybody, welcome to episode 119 of Games My Mom Found. I am Mike Huberton, and who's draining blood with me tonight?
No longer has any pithy comments, Julian Titus.
All right. And welcome back, and I'm going to introduce, Ashley, why don't you say where people might know you from first?
Oh, you might know me from the Nerds Without Pants podcast. We're actually just about to record our 200th episode, so
nice.
Look excited about that.
That's pretty awesome, man.
Yeah.
How many years has it been now?
It'll be 9 years this July.
Damn, that's a long time.
It is.
That's a lot of podcasting.
I like to think of it as the most expensive hobbyist podcast on the market because the amount of money I've put into it over the last almost decade is kind of crazy for a podcast that has a very small listener base and no money coming in. But it's a labor of love.
I know the feeling. I don't put as much money, but I know the feeling.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and we are here to talk about a very special game. We are going to be talking about Legacy of Kain Defiance from Crystal Dynamics, came out in 2003. We are going to wrap up our first series on Games My Mom Found. And who the hell would have thought the Blood Omen series, Legacy of Kain? Nobody, because I never thought it would be.
I think it's a good one though because it's a cult classic series. It's a dormant series, and there aren't a lot of games in it, so it's an easy one to actually play through the entire thing if you're interested.
You just have to track it down in some. Well, most of it's on PC, not all of it.
Yeah. I don't know. Was this one on PC?
This one is, yes. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, it's on Steam.
Okay, then they should all be on PC because I know that Blood Omen was.
Blood Omen 1 is not. You can't buy it anymore because of rights.
Oh,
it is. You can play it on PC.
Right.
It's there for PC. You just can't buy it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I don't play PC stuff, so I always forget about you can't really play older stuff on new PCs unless there's a lot of work on the back end done for it. So yeah, because that would have been a 1996 or 97 thing. Yeah.
Well, example, I played Warcraft 2 not that long ago because I just needed my Warcraft fix.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't playing what Blizzard has. I took the old game and threw it in a DOS box emulator and played it that way. Same as I play a game called that I want to do on the show really bad, but haven't found a sucker yet. Magic the Gathering Chandalar from 1994 or 95 or maybe 96. I can't remember.
Mm.
But you have to be a fan of Magic the Gathering or there's no way it's going to work.
Right.
Because you're not going to know how to play the game.
Oh, I guess this is the part where I'm on the show and I nominate my co-host Justin Ham because I know he loves Magic the Gathering and playing potentially bad games. So you might want to hit him up again.
Okay, it's a good game. It's just from 97, but you have to know Magic the Gathering to play it, and you go across a world map and beat people, win cards, win money, buy new cards, and you eventually go and defeat these wizards.
I bet he probably played it when it was new, so...
I did too. I love it. I pick it up every year. I go back to it. At some point in the year, I'll just play it for a month. But all right, enough of that. We're here for Legacy of Kain. And the reason why we're doing this episode is because back in episode 19 is when we first covered the first Legacy of Kain, Blood Omen. So I figured 100 episodes later, we should finish the series out and do Defiance.
That sounds good. Yeah, you've done 100 episodes right around the time we've done 100 episodes, and then right around that time we've hit the 200 mark. So yeah, it's really good.
It's surprising. This is a series that I hate it and love it at the same time. So I'm not.
That's fair.
I'm not a complete fan of it, but I also it's been an experience playing through it for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
And this game is either the best or the second best of the entire series.
Agreed. Yeah.
Soul Reaver is the only one that might be better. I don't know, because Soul Reaver is really damn good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you play this back in the day?
I did. I mean, I bought this day one because I was such a huge fan of Legacy of Kain. And even though I was disappointed in Blood Omen 2 when that came out, just seeing preview coverage in magazines of Defiance, I was like, okay, this looks cool. And also just the chance to play as both characters that I had grown to love by that point. It just seemed like this was going to be finally the Legacy of Kain game that kind of, made it explode as a series and instead of being this under the radar type of thing that only super geeky people got into.
How'd that work out?
So I really enjoyed it. I remembered loving this game, but I remember I didn't finish it. And what happened is that I put it down to play something else for a little bit. And then I came back to it and could not remember what I had been doing and couldn't figure out where to go next. And now I know why, because I stopped on the Vorador's Mansion level, and that is one of the most... It's the water temple, Legacy of Kain Defiance.
It's worse than the water temple.
I don't know. No, I don't know if it's worse than the water temple, like for sheer navigation purposes, but we'll get into it. But like... So I probably played this game for about 14 hours to finish it. And 3 to 4 of that playtime was on that one level. And every time that I got stuck on this game, and I got stuck a fair amount, was purely because of weird camera angles where I couldn't actually see what I was supposed to be doing next or where I was supposed to go next. And that's definitely something we'll get into. But the thing about that is that that's kind of just a product of the time, which I think is why it didn't bother me in 2003, but it bothers me in 2021, just because, like, we're still talking about a time when you usually didn't have full camera control on video games. Like, there's a reason why, because, obviously, this is super aping Devil May Cry, which I think came out like a year before. I mean, straight up with, like, the air juggles and the launchers and all of that stuff. But also, if you remember, like, Devil May Cry 1 was fixed camera angles like a Resident Evil game. Same thing with Onimusha, and I kind of wish that this had fixed camera angles too, because I think that would have fixed a lot of my issues with it.
It would have been better at times, because the camera is the biggest enemy in this game. Is that you can't look around when you want to, and some of the fixed camera... I felt like they were fixed camera. The camera angles you get are just not friendly. Like, there were times where I need to go a certain way, or my favorite, you'd be running one way, the camera would switch, so now he's running the opposite. The camera switches, now your controls are all backwards. Like,
so... Yes, and here's where I get on my soapbox about why tank controls are good. It's because for stuff like this, because when you're doing shifting camera angles, fixed camera angles in a 3D game, but you're using full analog control, you get into situations like Legacy of Kain Defiance, where you do the cutscene to phase through a gate and then immediately phase back through the gate because you're no longer facing the same direction. Where if you just know that up on the D-pad is always forward and back is always backwards, you don't have those problems. So that's why, like, I'm a huge defender of, like, the early Resident Evil control scheme. I can fly through the old Resident Evil games. Like,
their controls are fine.
Yeah, well, I mean, a lot of people hate them, but like, I'm like a ninja on those games. And I remember playing Fatal Frame for the PS2, which was the same thing, where it was fixed camera angles but full analog control. And I had to stop playing it because I kept getting into situations where I was going, back and forth between the same screen because the camera angle would change, and, like, all of a sudden, like, up would be back, and it's a problem.
No, that was also my biggest problem with this game. It's like, I don't mind tank controls. I didn't like Fear Effect tank controls, but normally tank controls, as long as the game is made right, doesn't bother me.
Yeah.
And I felt like it would. I can see where you're coming from. Like, it would have improved this game. Like, the combat is fine. Like, I really enjoyed the combat as Kain as Raziel, but when it came to trying to figure out where the hell to go, it's so damn confusing.
Yeah.
And you repeat areas in this game. So this game takes place over the course of, you play as 2 different characters. You play as Kain and Raziel from the series Soul Reaver and Blood Omen, respectively.
And then up right after Soul Reaver 2.
I don't even remember. In Soul Reaver 2, didn't he, like, take the Reaver and stab Raziel with the Reaver? Kain did?
Yes, and then so Raziel he goes back to the spectral realm, and that's where you get the line, "Nature abhors a paradox." And so, this picks up right after that, where Kain is doing his thing, but then Raziel is imprisoned by, the entity that raised him, and so he has to get out of the spectral realm in his first level. Okay. I really like the way that it alternates between the characters. I thought that was really cool.
It was cool, and this is the Kain from Soul Reaver 1 that threw Raziel into the pit, and then saw Raziel again in Soul Reaver 1 or Soul Reaver 2. It's that same Kain, not the Kain from Blood Omen 2, because that game was a time paradox that didn't happen.
Well,
sort of, right?
No, I think it did happen, because they mention the stuff from Blood Omen 2 quite heavily in this one.
Oh, the
Hilden and stuff like that. Yeah. So I thought that was really interesting, because I remembered I think we mentioned that on Blood Omen 2, where, like, they had kind of said that they were going to, like, non-canonize that game. But then, the stuff that you learn from the end of Blood Omen 2 definitely factors in pretty heavily to, like, the back half of this game. So
good point. Plus, one of the bosses you fight is the guy possessing somebody else from Blood Omen 2, the final boss of Blood Omen 2 is in this game.
Yeah. So I thought it was so. I love, and I know I've said this on the previous podcast, but I love the lore and the world building of this series. I think that Silicon Knights had a really amazing foundation, and then Crystal Dynamics built on it in a fundamentally amazing way. And I love the fact that this game, especially because, I didn't know how this game ended before going into this podcast, and I felt bad because it is the last in this series, probably. And I was like, man, I wonder if this is even going to feel like an ending or if it's going to feel satisfying. And I love the fact that they were able to really pull together all of these disparate games told by different people, because Blood Omen was told by one team, Soul Reaver 1 and 2 was by another, and then Blood Omen 2 was by yet another. So being able to take all of that stuff and all of this disparate lore that was kind of bolted on by different teams, they really turned it into something cohesive. And I don't know if I don't think that they left a thread unwrapped up. I was kind of amazed. They even redeemed Ariel, and they brought Mortanius back, and you finally get Mobius, the Time Streamer's comeuppance, and they kind of wrapped up everything. So if there's no more Legacy of Kain, then I'm happy that at least it has a satisfying conclusion.
We'll have to talk about that ending later, because I didn't really catch a lot of stuff that's going on with the ending for some reason. My brain wasn't comprehending. I was like, I beat the game, then the game. I listened to it, I watched it, then the game got turned off really fast.
Yeah, to be fair, I finished it last night at 2:30 in the morning, so I'm a little part of it was a little fuzzy because I've been playing it for I think 5 hours straight at that point, but still I was pretty pleased with what I saw.
Okay, we'll have to talk about it. And I should say there will be spoilers for Legacy of Kain, but if you haven't listened to the early episode, none of it will mean anything to you. So
yeah, probably not. Also, why would you start with that? I'm like, why did you start? You guys have been doing the MCU, and I would hear people I watched Avengers Endgame, and I hadn't watched anything else, and I didn't know what was going on. It's well, what? Yeah, why did you do that? Why didn't you at least watch the other 3 Avengers movies? You would have been fine just watching those, but okay, whatever, you do you.
I mean, there are people who do that. That's why, with this series, I think that's one reason why this one doesn't have a number, that they don't want you to well, I haven't played the rest of the series, so I'm not going to touch it. But if you bought this game and you hadn't played Soul Reaver Blood Omen, you wouldn't know what the fuck's going on.
This is I think all it needed was a really good recap cinematic. Yeah, and you can go back and watch at least the intro cutscenes from Soul Reaver 1 and 2, and I think Blood Omen actually. So you can at least get the very broad strokes. But yeah, it really just needed a previously on, because this series is just so episodic.
Yeah, and that was one of the problems I felt with it. I didn't have that problem because I played the entire series and I remember bits and pieces of it. For me, finally get to play as Kain and Raziel, and this is also my favorite Kain. I don't like Kain in Blood Omen 2. I don't like Kain in Blood Omen 1, but the Kain in this game was badass.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean,
this is Elder Vampire Kain, essentially.
Yeah.
God, he was badass.
Yeah, and just, going back to the combat, it's so good. Again, just clearly just ripping off Devil May Cry in almost whole cloth, but in a really amazing way. I think that, they really upped the game. And, I will say that I do think there's issues with pacing where, especially since you are backtracking so much, that they needed fewer enemies. It's not big, and it's not that I didn't enjoy the combat. It's just that at a certain point, when you're just trying to get out of Vorador's fucking mansion after 3.5 hours, you don't want to, be held up by the same group of enemies going through the same hallway. But even so,
every time.
Every time. And
I got lost in the mansion too. I had to literally watch a video scene by scene and do exactly what the YouTuber did, or I could not figure it out.
Yeah, I had to. So it was neat because I looked it up, and I actually went to GameFAQs first because I was going back between GameFAQs and YouTube. Because at first I just wanted hints, and then figure it out for my own. But the intro of this fact writer's thing to Vorador's mansion was, oh boy, this level is going to enrage you. I was like, okay, I feel justified in the fact that this is where I stopped. It makes sense to me that, I probably put it down to play something else because I got stuck and then came back to it. And I was like, oh, now I'm even more stuck and I can't even figure out what I need to do next. So yeah, that level, man.
it's one of those games that like I can completely see why like you got dropped off that level, because I was doing the level and I had a guide pulled up and I'm following the guide like, oh, you can jump here, do this, all right. And at some point because at least in the guide I was reading, he wouldn't give me a whole lot of detail. Like, oh, go back to this room. I'm like, well, I don't know what room this is, and there's no map in this game. There is no map. There is nothing indicator saying you should go here. Items do float, so this is an item. This is something that you want, but you're not getting what you need. Like I need a map. If I would have had a map and a working camera, I've been just fine.
Yes, this game is like it needs at least a mini map, or it needs a mini map, but at least like a map screen that you can pause and go to. But yeah, that was like my big issue. Every time that I got stuck on the game was that invariably it would be something that like. At some point, it almost felt like they were doing it on purpose, where they would like actually put stuff like in the corner of rooms where the camera didn't actually pivot. like one part in like specifically where I was at one of the like elemental reaver areas for Raziel, and I needed to rematerialize into the physical realm and could not find the place to do it. And I ran around there for like 20 minutes, and then finally I found it in the corner of the room where the camera doesn't go. Like, think about, like, it would be, like, behind where the camera was stationed, like, for this shot. And you just had to know to, like, kind of move, because you can move the camera slightly, back and forth and up and down. And so once I did that, like, it was like, okay, there it is. And, that you can kind of hear the sound of the portal, but it's not distinct by any means. So, yeah, just things like that. And like that was every time it was like, oh, I didn't know that was a door, because it looked just like the rest of the, the background. And also like the camera didn't like fixate on it like, it should. But again, a lot of that is just, 2003 era design. And also one other thing is that the levels are very much like copy and pasted, where it's like you have like identical hallways just like reversed in certain areas of the game, and that makes it even more confusing because there's not a lot of landmarks to like be like, okay, I know if I go here, then this is going to lead me to where I need to go for this thing, and that becomes a big issue.
I mean, that's just getting lost all the time, and the fact that you go back to places over and over again also plays a big part in that.
Yeah.
Because as the game is split up in chapters, each chapter you play as Raziel or Kain, you go to some of the same places you'll warp back to, and then you'll have to go somewhere new in that area.
Right.
And I also didn't like the way Raziel played as much in this game.
He seems weaker than Kain, doesn't he? Like by a large margin.
Weaker.
Yeah.
He's faster than Kain, but I would say definitely weaker than Kain. Also, the fact that with his puzzles, there's multiple times in this game where you have to shift the world into the spiritual realm or the spectral realm, jump on something, and I never thought about that. I'm like, I forgot that I could even do that. The game doesn't remind you that's a thing.
Yeah, and they're also not as ambitious with it in this game as they were in, like, actually, Soul Reaver 2 wasn't as ambitious with the spectral realm shifting either. It was really Soul Reaver that had kind of the really, like, mind-blowing puzzles using that mechanic. And yeah, so, like, I was in the same boat where I knew that, like, shifting changed the environment, but it was used so little in Defiance that when I really needed it, I was like, oh, right, okay. Like, I didn't even think to do that because I just haven't had to do it for most of this game. So yeah, it needed, like, better tutorializing on that part of it.
Yeah, there was one part early on with Kain when you're in a cemetery, or not Kain, but with Raziel when you're in a cemetery and you get the first Reaver, the Dark Reaver, or Shadow Reaver, whatever the hell it's called. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know what to do. Like, okay, it shows me this door. Okay, I know I have to go and touch this orb. So I'd go over to the orb, touch the orb, thinking I have to touch it to get the Reaver that color, then run all the way to this door, and it wouldn't open the door. It wasn't until I watched a video where I saw the guy press up on the D-pad and switch to Reavers. I'm like, oh, wow. I'm like, well, either I'm spoiled by new games or you guys did not explain any of this to me.
I think that there was there a tool? No, I don't think there was. And see, this is also that era where you needed to read the instruction manual. Like, from Soul Reaver on, they do a decent job of, like, telling you the basic controls. But I don't think that they actually tell you, yeah, like, left and right on the D-pad will change your Reavers. Because I was that way with Kain. Also, was like, I think I was almost done with the game when I was like, oh, yeah, so you can change the elements on his Reaver too. You don't need to do it as much with Kain because his Reaver spells don't require that. You don't need them to solve puzzles like you do for Raziel.
Yeah, like there's a puzzle early on with Raziel. You have to hold down the square button after your Reaver is charged and let it go so you can activate the ability. Never did it tell you that.
It does. No, it does tell you that,
Oh,
but I think it came up like in the middle of battle, so it's like you had to be like really quick to see it, and then I don't think that there's any like the tooltips don't show up elsewhere, where you can just look at them later. So yeah, that's an issue.
Yeah, that got me for a while. I had to watch a video to see what he did, and I saw, he held on the button. Like it took me a while. I was like, what the hell are we supposed to do?
Yeah.
Stuff like that I could have done without, because that bothered me.
The actual, like, the using the spells to like solve puzzles, or not knowing like the control mechanic for it?
Not knowing the controls.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, I definitely agree. Like it should have been a thing where when you need to do it for the first time to solve a puzzle, like it reminds you, hey, charge up your Reaver and then hold down the square button and let it go to cast the spell.
Or even just put the control menu in the menu. Like I went and looked at the controls menu, it's not there.
Yeah.
That got me a little annoyed.
Yeah.
So I mean, but again, it makes sense when you say, well, they would have expected you just to go look at the frickin' instruction book. I just don't have that because, well, my version didn't come with one.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I had mine, and I was like, I should probably read this. But then I was like, nah, you know what? These games are pretty good about the tutorials. I should be fine. And I was. But I'm sure there was some stuff in there that I, would have found out quicker if I had, read the instruction manual.
It is confusing. I mean, the world is pretty gigantic and kind of interesting how you're jumping through these different areas. And like the whole point of like Raziel, I think, is 500 years in the future of Kain.
Yeah.
That is also interesting because you go through some of the same places, but it's been so many years that things are different. And I know with Kain, you go to a lot of the same, like, how the hell do they call the place where you get the Reavers?
The Forges?
Forges, yeah. You go to them and you'll see them as, it was like, I already got that. And you'll see it with Kain. It's just so interesting, too, because some of the stuff that Kain does, I think, will affect what Raziel does if he goes back there later. Like, there's some very interesting parts that they're jumping through time. And they're both being manipulated, one by Morpheus, which is the time guy from the first game, and Raziel being, manipulated by the Elder God.
Yeah.
Even though he's like, I'm no longer doing what you want, but he still is.
Yeah, I think it was really cool the way that, like, they set off as adversaries in Soul Reaver, and so you think that, this is going to be the game where they settle it, right? Like, either Raziel's going to kill Kain or Kain's going to kill Raziel. Because, I thought it was interesting that you're playing as both characters, but then you start to realize, these guys are actually really parallel to each other, and they're kind of on this collision course. And I thought that stuff was really cool. Like it kind of reminded me of like if you had like a DC versus Marvel comic book crossover where it ends up being like, well, it like Lex Luthor and I don't know, like Obadiah Stane. That's actually a really bad reference, but it's like the bad guy from like each realm teaming up to like take on like the combined good guys, but the good guys don't know it at first. That's 100% what's going on in Legacy of Kain Defiance.
Okay, yeah, that's a good way to put it, though. I wouldn't have thought it that way, but yeah, you are right, because the Elder God is manipulating everybody. He's manipulating Morpheus, too, but and no one's really aware of it. You're not even aware until the game progresses.
Yeah.
You don't find out that the Elder God is really the one moving all the chess pieces to like the last scene of the game. Yeah.
Yeah, like there are definitely hints of it towards the end of Soul Reaver 2. And again, I really like the way that they were able to like tie those threads together and really bring it to a conclusion. Yeah, there's the in the moment playing it, I think because I was I was on a time crunch, like I was getting super frustrated because of like the camera and stuff like that. But overall, like I'm really happy with this game, and like. Not to get to closing stuff, but it's like I think this is the one that's like the most playable of the series, like today. Like this is the one that would probably tell someone, if they wanted to try the series, like, yeah, just play this one. Like you're gonna get, you won't get like the finer points of the story, but you get a really good sampling of like what both of the characters are and the world, and also it's just like the most fun to play.
Yeah, no, it definitely was. Like the combat, like we said before, is really fun. The way, also one thing interesting about the game is that for both the characters, Raziel and Kain, they both have a way to heal themselves in battle. So as you beat down the enemies you're fighting, they'll crouch on the ground as they're dying, and you can either suck out their soul or just suck out their blood. And you can just do it while you're moving around. You can just hold down R1, and so they'll just take care of what they need to do, and the game won't really pause. They can blow them into, we better stand here while he drinks for a minute.
Yeah.
There's none of that.
Yeah. I thought about you because I was wondering if you would complain about Raziel's close-up soul steal animation taking too long.
It wasn't too bad. Like when you would grab the guy and punch him, like throw him to the ground, and it wasn't bad.
Yeah. And I think they probably realized that like the blood sucking animation in Blood Omen 2 was a little too long. So they definitely sped it up. With Kain, I got to the point where I was like, well, it takes too long to grab them. So I would actually, like, when they were in stagger mode, I would get a few paces away from them. Because also I just really love the, drain the blood from across the room thing that this series has. Like, this might actually be my favorite bit of vampire lore, like, of any, like, vampire media that I've consumed. Legacy of Kain might be my favorite. I think it's, like, one of the most unique takes on it.
Okay.
Like, the fact that, like, the vampires were these, like, etheric, godlike creatures, and then they were cast down by their enemies. The only reason that they became what they were is because they decided to mingle their blood with humans, and it basically just kind of slowly, like, eroded, their godhood over, eons. I think that's really cool.
Didn't they worship the same god, the elder god, too, without knowing it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was interesting, too, how it brings all that together, because in Soul Reaver, you have the elder god that saves, in quotations, Raziel when he's thrown in the Oblivion, when he's really just using Raziel to be his tool.
Yeah.
But he tricks him. And I love the whole, like, Raziel's still angry about Kain having him thrown into a pit to die for, a million years. Like, he hasn't forgiven him for that.
Right.
But again, it's something that's not really mentioned a whole lot in this game, unless here and there, but if you didn't play the other ones, you wouldn't really have caught the references they make.
Yeah.
It's like, you threw me in Oblivion or something, whatever the hell he says.
And you would also, like, it would be hard to, like, understand, like, that they both have the Soul Reaver. It's just, Raziel has basically, like, the soul of the weapon, and Kain has the body. Let me ask you this, because a lot of the reveal of the story through each chapter is Kain and Raziel seeing these murals from like vampire history, and there's the vampire savior and the vampire adversary, right?
Yeah.
So the vampire, like, and here's the thing is that, like, the vampire savior looks like the original vampire, so it's blue with these beautiful, like, feathered wings, and it's holding the Soul Reaver, and then the adversary looks like Kain to me, and is holding, like, a flaming sword. But then Raziel would say, like, well, why do I look like the adversary? And I was confused for, like, a good part of the game, because to me it's like, no, Raziel, you look like the savior. And so then, like, I don't know, like, it was just very strange to me, because it seemed like they were, like, very much, maybe it was you're supposed to be confused on that on purpose, because you were supposed to assume that Kain was the adversary. I don't know. What did you think about that?
That's what I thought too. I had thought when he was just that Raziel, he was the blue one.
Yeah.
Because he is blue.
Right.
I was thinking the same thing.
To think that, yeah.
And Kain is also the one that ruined everything, which, again, that was a one scene in a game that really pays off for someone that's played through this entire series, where you actually Kain is there when younger Kain ends up making the choice to destroy the pillars. I mean, he's far away, but he sees the pillars being destroyed, and he's like, this is where I shape destiny.
Yeah, that was so cool. I think that there was a huge missed opportunity to not have Raziel interact with Kain from Blood Omen 1 era. I thought that would have been awesome.
Like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Because that's what affects the entire world. And seeing the pillars normal, too, because you're jumping through time, that was really cool, too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Before they were destroyed.
They did some great stuff, and the cool stuff also is, like, you revisit certain areas from Blood Omen, like Avernus Cathedral is, like, one of the last big levels of Blood Omen 1. And I was like, oh man, before the level started, I was like, wait, they were saying that there's, like, a bunch of chaos going on. Is Kain currently, like, running amok in Avernus? Or am I going to see, like, Blood Omen 1 Kain, like, just, like, wreaking havoc in here? Because that would be amazing.
That would have been. Oh, did you? I wonder if you got this. Not only was it an Easter egg. This was when I first got the cathedral. This is way late in the game. I was being slow at killing one of the monks, and all of a sudden, one of the monks in the background, doing some kind of chant, and fire's happening. And I didn't kill him. I left him alone because I was killing other monks. He summoned a demon.
Oh yeah, that happens quite a bit. Like, to the point where I was like, okay, when there were, like, more than one of them, it's like, I need to kill at least one of you right away, because I don't want to be facing multiple demons at the same time.
Oh yeah, I mean, he was chanting for a while. I just didn't think he's going to cast a fire spell. Okay, who cares?
Yeah.
And those are the same demons from Blood Omen 1.
Yeah, well, and they're also in Soul Reaver 2. So yeah, there's some good consistency there.
I don't remember Soul Reaver 2, unfortunately, very well, because I didn't actually play it, because it wouldn't work.
Right. Yeah. Oh, right. So in Soul Reaver 2, that demon and also those other ones that you see later on in Defiance that have like kind of, they almost have like, they're like kind of purplish and have like kind of electricity on their hands.
Okay. They were in Soul Reaver 2, right? Also.
Yes, and the thing about them is that I don't know if this happens to you on Defiance, but when you're playing Soul Reaver 2, when you get killed by them, you're like, well, I'm just going to shift to the spectral realm and I'll just go back. But they also shift to the spectral realm, so you're like doubly fucked. And so then they can actually kill you if they do enough damage to you in the spectral realm.
Okay, that didn't happen to me because I was cheating too. So I actually put infinite health in at one point in this game. I got so irritated. It wasn't. It just I was getting tired of running around, being lost, and then spending time on combat too. So I'm like, there's actually button codes in the game for cheats for infinite health and things.
Yeah.
So I just did whatever that was, and I just had infinite health and said, okay, we're good to go.
Most of the times that I died was actually not from combat, but from missed jump. And again, camera. Like it almost seemed like anytime that you had to do like a jumping puzzle, the camera was situated in the worst place to do said puzzle. And then later on, like towards the end of the game, they're like timing based jump puzzles. And it's like, you guys got to give me a little more time than this because this sucks.
Oh yeah, no, there's one where you have to literally like go in the spectral realm to do the puzzle because otherwise you don't have enough time. And I wouldn't have figured that out because I think, oh, I just got to go faster. I got to go faster. You literally have to switch it off or it won't work.
Yeah.
And I mean, I did find it enjoyable how each Reaver has like a different ability, and throughout the game you have to switch Reavers. Because one Reaver will let you climb up waterfalls, one will let you extinguish fires, one will let you light fires, one will let you stab the ground and make platforms and make wind tunnels. Like that was cool once I knew what to do.
That was. I wish that they had more differences in combat. Like they each have their own Reaver spell, which there's not a lot of them that are useful. Kain has one that slows down time, which is super useful.
Oh, I never use that. I just did the lightning one as Kain.
The time one is really good because it like they go super slow and you can just like wreck house on them, which is really neat. Like for Raziel, like they didn't work the way that I think they were supposed to, and I don't know if this is a glitch or not, but like he has one with the water Reaver where he actually freezes the enemies. But I think it just puts them into stasis, and if you're hitting them, you're not actually damaging them. It just kind of like lets you, I guess, control the space a little bit, you know, to kind of like get a breather. And then the same thing with like the Fire Reaver, it sets them all on fucking fire and they start running around, but it doesn't seem to be doing damage to them while they're running around. So it just makes them harder to hit because they're just like, and you're just like, come back here so I can slay you.
I mean, you had the telekinetic ability in this game, which I didn't use a lot in combat because it didn't seem super useful. Except for little guys. Little guys, it was good.
Oh, dude! Like I forgot to say that when we talked about combat at the beginning. Like I fucking loved the telekinesis in this game. Like there's parts where you can like throw people, especially with Kain, you can throw them off like battlements and stuff.
That I did do.
And the scream is so satisfying. And the only thing, again, going back to like Raziel being weaker, I didn't like the fact that he didn't have the telekinesis pull that Kain does, because I really loved just like flinging fools around. Like, I'm going to throw you against a wall. I'm going to throw you against this spike. Like, you have less control with Raziel. Like, if you want to like throw somebody onto a spike or a torch to kill them, you have to air juggle them and then jump up in the air and then do the TK push. And hopefully they're lined up enough to where it'll connect. But it was a lot more fun with Kain.
I'm just grateful that I didn't have to throw every enemy I fought on a spike or into fire to kill them.
Yeah, I like that it's there. I wish that it was a little stickier. Like maybe, you know, it was like a homing thing where if you get relatively close with a TK push, it just automatically counts. Because I couldn't do it on purpose very often, and I really wanted to.
That feels more like something that would, if this game got remade or something, you know, more quality life that we're used to now.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Like, that's the thing is, like, I think it's so ambitious. Like, this game, and then also PsyOps, the Mindgate Conspiracy, which is, like, one of my favorite, like, B-tier, like, PS2 games. Super ambitious. Like, there's no way that you should have been messing with physics in that way on the PlayStation 2. But it's really cool that they tried.
I know of it. It's always been on my list to play someday.
It's a cool little game. It's not going to blow your mind, Gate Conspiracy, but it's a real, like, that is like the epitome of like B tier game to me, where it's like this isn't all the way there, but man, I wish there was a sequel, because there are some really cool ideas in here, and again, just very ambitious for the platform.
And most of the bosses in this game are also pretty simple. Like there's only a couple of real boss fights. The one that felt like boss fights, I mean, to fight the gargoyles that they like to throw at you all the time.
Oh, you like the statues?
Yeah, you fight a lot of freaking statues in this game.
Yeah, I wouldn't count them as boss fights.
Or mini bosses, maybe.
I think they're just like tougher enemies. But yeah, okay. I didn't like how many they threw at you. Like, especially when it would be like, there were certain parts in the Soul Forges where it was like, okay, every time that I go into a room, it locks, and now I have to fight like 2 or 3 of these guys. But my workaround for a lot of them was if you line them up properly, they'll hit each other, and they do a lot of damage if they hit each other. So like you can knock them out pretty quick if you can swing that pretty well. But I would say so like Raziel fights some bosses in the spectral realm to get some of the Reavers.
Yeah, there's there's like 8 of them maybe you fight all together.
I think so, yeah.
They're not terrible.
They're not terrible. I don't like, especially the first 2, like their life bars were almost like invisible on the background because they were like, I think like blue, and I think the other one was like light blue or something. It's like, that's literally the color scheme of the spectral realm. So I was like, I can't even see if I'm doing damage to these guys. But I like that they at least threw in one Soul Reaver 1 style boss, because you do finally get to kill the last vampire lieutenant.
Toriel?
Yeah, Terrell, and that one is like it's a puzzle boss, and I really liked that because I was like, man, why are the bosses like crappy here? but that one was cool.
That's how he stuck with me, because in Soul Reaver you fight everyone but him, and then he wasn't in Soul Reaver 2 either, and it isn't until this game he finally kills the last brother that he missed. Yeah,
and again, really cool that they remembered. Like, I wouldn't have, like, if we didn't do that, I would not have been like, man, I feel really gypped that we didn't kill that last lieutenant, because I didn't remember. But when I saw him, I was like, oh shit, this is really cool.
I like the way you find him. You jump into a pit, and then all of a sudden, all these people are chanting, sacrificing something, and you're like, wait a second.
Yeah.
And you find out it's him.
Yeah.
He's like, I recognize that smell. That was a cool scene. The boss fight, I had to look up a guy because I was doing it wrong.
Yeah, my like, I knew like the basics of what I needed to do, but I didn't realize that you could like use your telekinesis to hit them from afar, because my problem is that I wasn't getting close enough to him to actually hit him before he got back up. And I don't know if I would have figured that out on my own.
No, I wouldn't. Because I literally would jump up, hit the gong, whatever one was glowing, and then go run and hit him.
Yeah. And unless like you just happen to be like positioned correctly, you're probably only going to get one hit that way. And I was like, this can't be right.
It took a lot.
Yeah.
I was using save states, of course. I was able to like kind of like, okay, I know where he's going to be at. I know where it's going to be at. So I'll just position myself in the right area. But yeah, it's not easy.
Yeah. Last boss I had some trouble with too, just from a pure like dodging like standpoint. I had a really rough time. I think I had to fight him like 6 times, and like those first 5, the first 3 was like I just seemed to be getting hit by every single thing that he would do, like every tentacle swipe, every fireball, and I was like, man, I don't know what to do. Like I almost gave up. I was like, this is impossible. And then eventually I made it through. But
there's no health there's no like health containers, like, because throughout this game and some of the boss fights, they'll give you little health containers that you can find in the room and drain a pool of blood so you can stay alive and keep going.
Yeah.
And they didn't do it for the final boss.
Yeah.
I mean, the areas do vary a lot, kind of like, except my problem is you're at the cathedral as Kain for a long fucking time, and the guy that I was using from GameFAQs, it would pick up each chapter after you already got to the new area. Well, I don't know where the fucking new area is when I would start, because you would start back wherever you ended. Like, okay, now you gotta, and I would be reading the guide. I'm like, well, none of this is happening right now, because the guy was expecting me to get where I needed to go, and then it would continue there. And I'm like, so that's why I had to watch a video of somebody playing it scene by scene, because I got lost so many times. And as the game opens up and you get farther, you have access to giant areas. You have one area you have to go to, but you have access to the whole place. Oh,
I'll do you one better. I screwed myself over in a major way, where once you get the final balance emblem for Kain, the tool, like the next thing that it tells you to do is go unlock the balance door, or go unlock the completed emblem door using the balance thing. And I was like, okay. And I was like, right, because there was that door way back at Seraphim Keep.
Oh.
And I was like, man, like, why didn't they just like do a cutscene where he goes back? So I went all the way back to the beginning of the game because they let you do that.
Yeah,
you can just go to the bat, travel sites and just go back. And I went back through the entire game, and I was like going through the Seraphan level, and I was like, what the fuck is going on? So I looked at I looked at the guy, and I was like, oh, fuck me. And so then I had to go all the way back to the Vampire Cathedral. Yeah, I lost like a good 90 minutes there. But that, part of that's on me. But again, would have been, it's a thing where it's like, because I did pass by that door. So it's like, maybe do the little cutscene thing where it's like showing the door. Yeah. Because now you have the thing to open the door. Because I thought I'd already opened that door.
It's because the game is long and you forget what you've done. I mean, I wouldn't really say yes, you can say but that's something that even in 2003, Devil May Cry 2 came out in 2003. Other games that came out that would have give you some kind of recognition. This wasn't like they didn't know they could have put it in there. I think something.
Yeah, but I do think that that was still a new thing because I think the game on the PS2, at least that I've played, that does it the best is the first God of War. Well, both God of War games. They did a fantastic job of you go into a room and even though it's also fixed camera angles, they're like, hey, here, this is what you need to be paying attention to. And they do it in a very elegant way. But again, that's 2006, the Xbox 360 was out by the time God of War came out. So
if we just would have had a map.
Yes, map would have been super helpful.
I mean, that if you had some kind of map that said, okay, and just labeled certain areas. So when they say, go here, you had some information. Because once I found out that you could jump around the world with the bat points, I was done using the guy. Because I'm like, I cannot play a game where I can completely go. Because I would do it a couple times. I'd go completely wrong areas, look at the guy, and be like, oh, what are you doing over here? Just go here. What you did. And I'm like, yeah, we're done.
Yeah.
We're watching YouTube.
Yeah. And also the guy that I was using, the English wasn't, it wasn't written very well, and also again it would assume oh yeah, just go back to this room, and it's like, what room is that? Where is that?
Yeah, I mean, most of the levels besides the cathedral I felt were kind of straightforward, except for Vorador's Mansion.
Yeah, it's Vorador's Mansion and the cathedral that are the rough ones, and I did have some trouble with some of the soul forges with Raziel.
Me too, but they're not as they're smaller, so much less complicated. In Vorador's Mansion, you're kind of comparing it to the Water Temple, but it has 3 different spears you have to get to unlock a door. But in order to get these 3 spears, you have to get other items throughout the place. I literally had somehow skipped one of the spears, grabbed a different spear, did a different part, grabbed one of these 2 items, but not an item I need to open a door. So when I was watching the guide, I'm like, I did what he did. Why isn't it working? I literally had to go back, watch the entire guide from the earlier part, run through an entire level to find one wall I forgot to break that I didn't know I could break to find an item that I needed to open another door to go through a wall. It was I was like, wow, this is bullshit.
And again, that was a situation where the camera was not situated in a way where I noticed that it was a breakable wall. Yeah. And that, like I said, every time that I got stuck on this game, it was camera related.
Yeah, I mean the designs are great. The enemies were fine. Even as in combat, you earn some kind of experience, something. You learn new abilities for Kain and Raziel throughout the game, so it kind of gives you a reason to combat. But I got to a point where I'm just I'm running by everybody.
Abilities, though. Yeah, it's especially in hour 4 of Vorador's Mansion. Yeah, I'm just running by dudes until it forces me to fight them.
So the green gate comes up.
Yeah. But yeah, I loved that flurry attack. Again, I mean it's straight up from Devil May Cry. It's the stinger from Devil May Cry, but I don't care. It's really cool, and the animations were really good. I love the way Raziel rolls and then does it. He does a little almost like a fencing style riposte jab thing, and then Kain just Kain is Kain, so he's just hacking away at a dude really fast. Even their personalities are kind of exemplified in their combat styles. They did some good stuff in this game.
Kain also had a good X attack where if you hit X, he could turn into miss to dodge really good.
Yes,
Raziel
his
could
dodge
roll,
is way better than Raziel's roll. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that is that's no Dark Souls iframe roll. That I heard a lot of that roll. But I mean, I did enjoy I enjoyed the game a lot. I was, as much as I don't really remember all the story connecting beats from the old previous games because it's been so long. I do know one thing interesting that kept throughout the series with Raziel is he kept all his abilities he got from the first Soul Reaver. That was also so cool when you finally killed the last lieutenant. He finally got the last ability he never got from Soul Reaver because the game got cut short because they were running out of time or something.
Yeah. I wish that it had been like something more substantial than, oh, your telekinesis is more powerful. It's like, oh man, come on. Like, but I understand, it's like towards the end of the game, I started to feel the same way that I did on like Soul Reaver 2 and Blood Omen 2, where it's like, okay, you guys were running out of time and resources, weren't you? Like, you can feel it. Like, it's like, okay, we got to wrap this up quick because otherwise it's not going to happen.
You could tell crunch was coming.
Yeah.
In that sense, like they were just like, you need to ship this game now.
Yeah.
This one, not as much as some of the others. I think Blood Omen 2 or maybe Soul Reaver 2 is much more obvious, but you can feel it in here too with how much they reuse things. Like when you went to Mordor Mansion the second time, I was very upset.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I was like, I don't want to go back. Don't make me go back. And then you end up running into Janus, who was in Soul Reaver 2, which is the first vampire. That was cool, seeing him again.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get to fight him too, which was also cool.
You fight him in a way because at that point he's possessed by the Hilden guy from Blood Omen 2. But yeah, like
was cool.
Yeah, I again, like it there's a lot of stuff in this game that pays off in really satisfying ways. And then you do like, we didn't talk about it, but because we've kind of been over back and forth around story beats, but like one of the big things is that Kain and Raziel are understanding that like it's coming down to them, right? Like one of them is the adversary, one of them is the savior of the vampire race, and they're not sure which is which, but they know it's them, right? And so that it's coming down to a fight, and it may not be the most fun fight to do, but you do get to fight Raziel as Kain and then fight Kain as Raziel, which I thought was a really neat part of storytelling, was that not only are we going to have the throwdown, but you get to do it from both sides.
That's got to be one of those gaming moments that was just up there with one of my favorites ever. Like, I was not expecting it. All of a sudden, here you're playing, like you said, you're playing Raziel, you fight Kain, like, okay, I beat Kain. And then Kain goes and fights Raziel, and you're controlling Kain, and you kill Raziel. He sucks him into the blade.
No, you're getting ahead of yourself.
Oh, Raziel kills Kain.
Yeah, and takes his heart because you find out Kain actually has Janos Audrin's heart, and so then Raziel needs that to resurrect Janos Audrin, and you think, oh, Kain's done. And I actually thought that. I was like, oh, interesting. Like, and I was like, this makes sense because Kain as a character was created by Silicon Knights, so it makes sense to me. The Crystal Dynamics would be like, no, the future of the series is Raziel because that's our creation. But then, it actually ends up being the other way around later on, where Raziel realizes, oh, I am the sword. Like that is my purpose, and I'm not supposed to be imprisoned. I'm supposed to become the sword, to become, so that we are the combined like savior.
I mean, how many games can say that you get to play as the protagonist and kill the antagonist, and then play as the antagonist and kill the protagonist?
Yeah, I don't think any other one can. I was wishing that for the last level, like for the last boss, that Kain transformed, like a la like the Devil Trigger and Devil May Cry or the Onimusha thing, because you see a mural of the true, savior of the vampire race, and it looks like Kain, but he has the blue skin and the wings. And I was like, oh man, are they going to merge? Like, is this going to be like a Dragon Ball Z style fusion? Because I am all for that, and it doesn't happen.
No, you get a different type of thing. But that was such a cool moment. I love fighting them as each other, and I couldn't believe it when Raziel killed Kain. I'm like, what?
Yeah. It threw me for a loop.
Yeah, it did too. And then I'm like, okay, he's done. And then you go and you kill Janus because you have the heart. And then you end up playing as Kain again. I'm like, what? Kain's dead. And all of a sudden, you're in hell or something as Kain.
Yeah,
that was cool.
and I love like one of the best like comeuppances in any video game is Mobius like talking to the Elder God saying, Kain is out of the picture, he's dead, and then Kain is literally behind him saying, oh, you're a little premature on that, and he just shoots a brick.
That was great. Like that was one of the, and he just stabs him. He finally kills him after all this time. He finally got him.
Yeah. That was really good. I think the voice actor for Mobius in this game is different than the previous ones, which is kind of a bummer. And then, like, they changed Mortanius's design so much that when they showed him, I was like, so one of the things that I will say about this series that I think is a detriment is that, well, it's a double-edged sword, right? So you get to see the same characters in each game, which is kind of cool. Like Vorador is in this game. Like all the major players are in most of the games in some form or fashion, but that also makes the world feel smaller because you're not really meeting new people. And so when they showed, this flock lead, this congregation leader in Avernus Cathedral, I was like, oh, cool. Like, we're finally getting a new character. But then it turned out, no, it's just Mortanius. He looks completely different than Blood Omen 1. And then also, because Tony J, who voices the Elder God, was the voice of Mortanius in Blood Omen 1. So it's also a different voice. And so I was completely confused, and I was like, oh, okay, that's just Mortanius.
Mortanius is the guy who ended up tricking Kain to becoming a vampire, right?
Yes.
In Hell?
Yeah, he's a necromancer, and he's the final boss of Blood Omen 1.
I thought Morpheus was the final boss in Blood Omen 1.
Nope. No, it's Mortanius. It gets confusing because they're both like M starting, fantasy names.
Well, Blood Omen 1 was 100 episodes ago, and
that too.
I didn't like Blood Omen 1.
Yeah, see, I've played Blood Omen 1 a lot, so I remember that story pretty well. I think when we did it for the podcast, I had just kind of forgotten the time stuff. I had forgotten that like Kain basically goes back in time and kind of is responsible for the vampire purge.
He fucks a lot of things up.
He does.
And that was also interesting, like, and you play as Raziel, because you're 500 years in the future, all the vampires are dead pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
Is Soul Reaver also 500 years later, or was Soul Reaver even farther ahead? I can't remember.
Soul Reaver is farther ahead.
Okay.
Yeah, because I think where Defiance is taking place, that's around the time of Blood Omen 1, right? Yeah, so he's around the time of Blood Omen 1, and so the reason the vampires are almost dead is because it was basically just Vorador and Kain. So Kain is really responsible for rebuilding the vampire race. And so Soul Reaver is like way, way, way. I think it's like 1,000 years. Okay, there we go. Yeah, it's a long time. And at that point, the world is almost all vampires. It goes the other
Soul
way.
Reaver 2 is the one that messes with time because you have Soul Reaver 1's ending. Okay.
Yeah, because you're going all over the time stream on Soul Reaver 2. You're going back and forth and back and forth.
It's a weird ass series, isn't it?
It is, yeah. I love timey-wimey stuff, but, you can write yourself into a corner very easily.
Yeah. I like stuff with time travel. This game I'm a little confused. It doesn't help that I haven't played the series is just confusing to me at this point.
Yeah. It is, and, and also, like, it doesn't hold your hand. Like, they, the previous crew we had talked about, like, the Shakespearean style prose in these games, which I love, but that doesn't make it any like less confusing, because not only are there these big flowery words, but they're also talking about like different time streams and paradoxes and alternate realities and stuff, and it's a lot.
Very odd, but it's still cool. And then like the whole ending part after Kain kills Morpheus and he ends up running into Raziel because Raziel got killed at some point. Now the Elder God took him back. And he sees Raziel again after killing him by Kain, after Kain killed Raziel. And then I think, doesn't he suck him into the sword at this point?
Yes, because that's actually the part. But yeah, because Raziel inhabits Mobius's body, to tell Kain, hey, you've got to take me into the sword.
Okay.
And that's one thing that I liked about this game is that Raziel finds a new way to enter the spectral realm, and he literally just inhabits like corpses, and then he's able to like reform his body from them. But so that was
I want to say in Soul Reaver 1 and 2, he's using the Elder God, giving him the ability to do it at certain portals, essentially.
Exactly. Yeah, there's like the Elder God has these portals opened up, and all Raziel has to do is absorb enough souls to get to full health. And then he can like rematerialize. Basically, like they say, like he needs enough soul energy to do it. And here it's like, no, he just needs a body.
I like that because in this, the whole thing is he's not working with the Elder God anymore because he kind of betrayed him by leaving him.
Yeah.
And the whole ending when Kain does absorb him, and all of a sudden Kain just sees the Elder God there, and he's like, and I think Raziel tells him, he's the one that's been manipulating everybody this entire time.
Yeah.
This is your real enemy, if I'm remembering correctly.
No, yeah, you're right. And it's cool because like there is this line that Ariel says in like her first cutscene in Blood Omen, "Beware the unspoken." And I just always remembered that line because again I played that game so many times, but I never thought it really meant anything. But no, it actually was pretty important because the unspoken is this like unknowable evil that this like Cthulhu god that's been like pulling the strings all this time
that everybody worships.
Yeah,
because don't the Highlands worship him too?
I think so. Yeah. So he's ubiquitous. Like he's omnipresent, and yeah, has really been the orchestrator of everything. And I love the fact that when Kain kills him, well, I don't know if he kills him, just beats him back. He's like, I am literally life and death. Like this isn't the end. It's just like, oh, it's so good. Like, because it does leave it open for more, but I do feel like it wraps up everything, everything in a pretty satisfying way where, I'm sad there's no more Legacy of Kain games, but at least it wasn't a Soul Reaver 2 cliffhanger.
Was it Soul Reaver 2 or Soul Reaver 1 has a cliffhanger?
Both of them.
Oh, God, I don't remember 2 at all. And we did 2 not that long ago, I feel like.
Yeah, because Soul Reaver 2 is the one where literally, like Raziel gets, struck by the blade and then dematerializes, and they're just like, oh, we just fucked up, didn't we? And then scene, like, credits.
Okay. The Elder God is an interesting boss fight. I can see why you had trouble with it. I had infinite health at this point because I just got tired of dealing with the game.
Mm-hmm.
But he shoots orbs at you, and you have to cut off the tentacles, and then the orbs kind of like home at you too if you're not doing it right.
Yeah, you got to be like what I found that I had to do, because in this game it's a little weird that you can go in and out of combat stance, and I thought that was dumb at first, but then I realized that it's actually pretty useful because there's parts where you want to be outside of combat stance so that you have more mobility. So I would be like outside of combat stance to like dodge the sweeping attacks of the tentacles, but then into combat stance to do the dodge when the tentacle would do its like whip crack move from above. And then you need to be in combat stance to dodge the fireballs. So it ended up like once I figured out that flow, it was fine. But it took me a while to figure out, oh, there's times when you really don't want to be, don't want to have your sword out, even though you're in a fight, basically.
Yeah, because you need to move, you need to run.
Yeah.
I thought the enemy variation was decent in this game too, though. It wasn't like this. I mean, they're close to the same thing, but it wasn't as bad as some games get that I played.
Yeah, I would have liked more, but then at the same time, like they kind of brought like all of the enemies from like the series as a whole, pretty much, and introduced. There's these weird people that Kain fight where they look like part animal. I think they were supposed to be like tribal people or something.
Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about.
They were new, yeah.
They were fun.
Yeah, they were pretty interesting. So yeah, I dug that, and the fact that they did bring back like the demons from Blood Omen 1 / Soul Reaver 2. Like there's again really good consistency here is for a very disparate series.
And I guess in the ending, so Kain ends up sacrificing Raziel to the Blood Reaver, making it the original Soul Reaver.
Mm-hmm.
And he has 2 versions of the Soul Reaver. I'm just reading it right now. And then he ends up, I'll just keep saying, if he's the Elder God, then he buries it under rubble in the collapsing Reaver Forge. Okay.
Oh.
That's what it says in here, at least, in the Wikipedia.
Oh, is there that wasn't in the ending. Like, unless there's like an after credits scene. Yeah, like, because the ending cinematic is just like Kain looking over the destroyed pillars, and like he kind of monologues and he holds the Reaver and talks about how it's actually a really great line where he says Raziel gave me like the greatest gift beyond the Reaver, hope, and you get the sense that like Kain is going to set out to right the wrong of him destroying the world, basically. Which is it's an interesting way to end it.
Simon Templeman being awesome.
Oh man, yeah.
His voice as Kain is still so good.
It's so good. I watched when you beat the game, you get to unlock like some bonus content, and they had like behind the scenes stuff, and they had more of the voice recording sessions. So I watched the one where it was like when Kain and Raziel meet for the first time in the game, and it's like just watching those two guys in the same room together, like just doing the scene as if it was a play. Like, again, it's just so cool because that's not the way that video game voice acting is done most of the time. Unless now, I think with motion capture, they tend to like act out the entire scene, like physically and, auto, like with their words, I think. But like, back in 2003, that wasn't done. So it's just so fascinating to watch them work. And it's like, they're not, because I always think with voice acting, it's like, oh, I messed that up. Let me do it again. Oh, I messed that up. Let me do it again. It's like, no, they're just straight up doing this scene, like beginning to end, one take. And it's like, man, these guys are great.
Well, they're both actors. I mean, besides his voice actors too. So
yeah. Well, I think Michael Bell, he's mostly a voice actor.
Okay. I
think he's done some TV, like in front of the camera, but Simon Templeman is a theater actor.
Yeah.
He's from the stage. And because we were talking about this on Nerds Without Pants recently, because we have a segment called Video Game Cage Match, and recently we had someone book Devil May Cry 2 versus Blood Omen 2 in a battle of mediocre sequels. And my whole argument for Blood Omen 2 winning was Simon fucking Templeman. I was like, he wins just based on the gravitas of his performance.
Devil May Cry 2 is a better game. I like Devil May Cry 2. I'm a big defender of that game.
Really?
I actually did, yeah. I played it once on PS4 with the HD collection about a year before this podcast, and I really enjoyed it.
The game where you just like shoot enemies off the screen.
Yeah, I was okay. It was easy.
Actually, okay, yeah, that makes a lot of sense coming from you. Okay,
yep.
Yeah.
I like easy games. If I can just blow through something, I have fun. I don't need to be challenged. I don't need to be like, oh, I'm going to die. I just want to enjoy killing things and get that dopamine hit.
Yeah, all I remember of Devil May Cry 2 is shooting things that I couldn't see and the game being very gray. And I don't remember any. And also the fact that I was surprised that Dante didn't seem like Dante. Like he just didn't have the wisecracking stuff that he did in the first game.
He's very, very fast. And I like games, and I'm a very, very fast character. And his controls are much better than 1, where 1 he's more, because his tank controls kind of, but in 2 he's completely movable, and that's I think what I like too about that game.
Yeah.
I'm going to cover it someday. It hasn't happened yet, but it's been talked about.
Oh yeah, that one definitely, like that whole series should definitely be taken on.
Hopefully we'll finish. I mean, hey, we're finally wrapping up this series, so I'm
yeah.
bad.
I don't know if do we have much more that we want to delve on this one, because I do have an important question about ending this series on games my mom found.
No, I don't think I do have questions, comments, and memories to read, but I don't have anything else. I think we covered most things in this game that I think we need to cover.
Cool. Yeah. So, this being the first series that you've completed on this podcast, and also it being a series that you weren't familiar with before, if there was going to be more Legacy of Kain, what would you want?
Dead Sun, that looked like Assassin's Creed game that we didn't get.
Okay. Yeah.
I really I don't need more of Kain and Raziel stories. I would like to just have something, because when I remember watching of Dead Sun, that little bit of trailer that came out, it looked like an Assassin's Creed, had a baby with action game like Devil May Cry, and that hit the vibe right for me, because give me awesome story of this, but give me combat and more things just kind of going along, and I'd be happy with that.
Yeah,
just don't give me run around a world confused for hours.
Yeah, I think I'm kind of in the same vein. Like, I remembered when I read the synopsis of Dead Sun, I thought it was a mistake that they said it I think 1,000 years after Kain and Raziel, so they're not even part of it. Which also maybe they should have made Blood Omen the actual series name instead of Legacy of Kain. But I guess it can still be his legacy even if he's not in the game.
I'm sure he would have been somewhere in there. This is what he did after
something.
Defiance.
Yeah, but I think I'm kind of torn. I like the idea of level-based games because there aren't many of those anymore. But I think if I had my way, what I would want is a open world Zelda style game, because that's because Blood Omen 1 is basically Legend of Zelda for adults. It's straight up, like a top down action adventure game. So I would want that. Bring back the armor and weapons that you can equip, because I thought that was a really awesome aspect of the first game that they got rid of. But then also have parts where you have to be a stealthy vampire because you don't want to raise, attention to yourself. So parts of it would be kind of Hitman-esque, where it's oh no, I've got to pretend to be a human right now and get into this area and then suck the blood. I can't just go around Victusing everybody in a blood frenzy, because it's going to go real bad for me. Or maybe you do that. Maybe it's Dishonored, where you can go ape shit in a town, but it's going to make things harder for you in the long run. I think that would be really cool. Kind of combine little bits of the whole series into something really cohesive and obviously much more polished.
So Assassin's Creed? That's going to remind me of people talking.
I mean, yes, but I envision the stealth as more of Hitman, where instead of sneaking up in bushes and stuff like that, you're using mind control or that disguise ability to blend in, and then I guess that's old style Assassin's Creed, isn't it? I've only played really the newer ones where it's more of an RPG, and then occasionally you get in a bush and stab a dude.
Yeah, the old ones are a lot of stealth. You can fight, but it's not super good, and you don't want to, but you sneak around a lot and kill people.
Yeah,
violently.
Yeah, I like the Hitman mode more, where you're just stalking a dude.
I've actually Never played a Hitman game.
Oh, dude. Okay. Yeah. Another series that probably doesn't hold up very well. So I would say if you're going to start with Blood Money, because that's probably the most playable of the older stuff.
Hitman 2, the new one that came out on Steam.
Uh-huh.
If we originally were going to do it on the show for the first season that Mike came, but then when the other guys quit the show, I took it off because I redid the entire season. But yeah, we were supposed to play Hitman 2.
Of the new trilogy.
Yes. One that just came out a couple years ago?
Yeah, those games are phenomenal. They're so much fun to replay. Like, I didn't realize that the first time that I played it. Like, when I played the first game, I just went through the levels once, and then I was like, okay, I finished the game. But then Hitman 2, I was like, oh no, you actually just want to keep doing these levels and come up with more and more effed up ways to take on your objectives. And it's so funny. It's sort of like the Yakuza series where it's on one hand, it's super serious. And on the other hand, it has the wackiest stuff you've ever seen in video games, and somehow it works.
I don't know. It's just one of those series I've never got around to, and I can't tell you why. I don't know.
Yeah, those newer ones are very accessible. They do a lot of really great quality of life stuff. Where I started with Blood Money also, and that game was great. But then at the same time, there'll be times where it's why did I die there, or why did I get spotted there? I don't understand, because they didn't have the ability to convey information to you the way that they do in the 2016 series.
Because Blood Money 2007, so that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Any last things to say about Legacy of Kain Defiance before we go to questions, comments, or memories? Which we do have questions, actually.
I'll save it for Shelf or Box.
Okay. First one from the Overblood group I got from Clayton Keith. It was a really interesting, but left me wanting more, but I still hate how they redesigned Kain after the first game.
That's interesting. I like it because it also makes sense in the lore that they're all evolving, and that's kind of how he's evolved, to become more monstrous and less human. And again, I thought it would have been really cool if this one ended with him evolving to the point of basically becoming what the vampires used to be. That would have been really cool. Imagine seeing that on a box cover for the sequel, where it's this blue winged character with this badass sword and this white hair. That'd be neat.
I actually never bought this game back in the day. I remember I picked it up. I was going to buy it. My friend was with me why are you buying this? You never even played a Legacy of Kain game before. I'm like, but it looks cool.
Yeah.
And they convinced me not to. That's always stuck with me after all these years.
It's one of my favorite pieces of box art. It's a really good cover.
Yeah, it is. All right. And then from the Legacy of Kain fans group, first one is a quote from the game from Julian Henry. You best burrow deep. Right after when the other god is running away.
Oh, yeah.
I like that. And from Brandon Jarrell, favorite enemy. The Red Demons. Just seeing them again hit nostalgic I didn't know I had.
Favorite enemy in this one. Even though they were annoying, I liked the vampire statues. Because I liked the way that they crumble, they take damage over time, and the sounds that they make when you hit them, and then also when they die, there's just this light that streams out of them. It design-wise, they're really cool. I just didn't like that I had to fight what seemed like an army of them.
Yeah, there were a lot of them. And another question from the same guy: favorite location? Mordor's mansion?
Oh, hell no. You know what? It's actually Avernus Cathedral because of the throwback. I was so jazzed to go back to Avernus. I thought that was no, wait, I take that back. Kain's Mausoleum. That was my favorite part. Because you get to go to the place where he wakes up when he was, turned into a vampire, because I had forgotten that Kain was a nobleman. So of course he would have a mausoleum because, he was rich. And so, you get to see it done up in a way that they couldn't do on Blood Omen 1. And there's this big portrait of him, and there's a bust of him and stuff like that. It's okay, yeah, this is proper Kain mausoleum style. It's a brief part of the game. It's not an actual level. It's just part of, or is it no, it's an actual level. It's just a short one.
Okay.
There are some levels in here that are very short.
Near the end of the game or near the beginning?
Near the beginning. Okay,
that's why I wasn't really into it yet. I was playing it, but it didn't really hit me probably then.
Yeah, I think it might be Raziel's first level when he's. Oh, I'm sorry, it is when he first materializes into the material realm. Is that right? No, that's not right. But it's one of his first levels after he breaks out of the spectral realm.
Okay, that's probably why I don't remember it. And then I'm just gonna say the cemetery is Raziel because I really enjoyed that part.
Mm.
And someone else had said that, so it reminded me, like, well, I did like that place.
Interesting. I got very turned around in that area, and I was like, because so I think I've mentioned this before, but I have this weird brain thing where I remember video game stuff above almost anything else. Like, don't ask me like important things from my life because I won't remember, but I can tell you like the names of like obscure characters from games that I've played once 20 years ago. But for some reason, playing through this, I didn't remember anything other than like the combat. I couldn't remember like areas or story beats or anything. And so for a while there, I was like, did I get stuck on the cemetery level? Did I get stuck like at the very beginning of the game? But no, it was definitely Vorador's Mansion, because once I saw the courtyard, I was like, that's it. This is the place. Yeah.
I mean, there's one part in Vorador's Mansion you have to jump up something and jump through a window to get to a different area to get something. Like, it is so confusing.
Yeah.
And then when you put the damn keys and when you stab the spears, you make certain walls are fragile. You can now break. Oh man, it is so confusing.
Well, especially because they don't communicate to you that like he should have said like, oh, like this mural got damaged. Maybe like the other ones have been affected in the same way. Mm-hmm. You know, there is a cutscene later on if you happen to walk by another one, like he'll say that, but I didn't know that I was supposed to look for that. I just thought that they were like giving me some health, you know, because that's all that's behind those first two. And I was like, okay, like I thought that would have led the way to the next area, but I guess not. So now what do I do?
All right, here's another one from the same guy. Favorite Reaver?
Ooh, for Kain, it's the Time Reaver.
Okay.
For Raziel, it's the Water Reaver because I like freezing them.
I didn't know you could freeze them.
Yeah, but I use the Reaver spells a lot.
The Earth ones, I like the way it looked and the damage it did to them, because I felt like it did some decent damage in the ability you get by making platforms. Yeah, and I like the lightning ability from Kain that he had.
That one's good too, because that one also like it starts arcing from enemy to enemy when you're just hitting them regularly, which is pretty neat.
This guy gave me a lot of questions. I still have two more I'm going to read from the same guy, Brandon Jarrell.
Cool.
Hey, nice having questions for a change on a game. Normally I don't get a lot of questions. Did you like alternating between Kain and Raziel?
I loved it.
Me too. It was. I wasn't so sure when I first heard about the game and we were getting ready for the show, but I enjoyed it. It was interesting. I mean, I wanted Kain back all the time. But I didn't like Raziel as much because he was much more puzzle heavy. I felt like Kain was more combat heavy, but
that's definitely the breakdown. To the point that I wish that there were fewer enemies for Raziel to fight, especially in Vorador's Mansion, because that was my thing. It's like I don't want to fight you anymore. I just want to solve the puzzles. But also like Kain just seems like so much more complete. It's like I can just like mist through, you know, these barriers where Raziel has to like go to a completely different plane of reality.
Yeah.
And, you know, like the shifting in this particular game, I didn't enjoy as much as Soul Reaver 1 and 2. Again, just because I think that for a lot of the game, they only used it to like have you go through these gates. And basically is like the puzzle ended up being now find out how to get back into the material realm instead of, you know, use the spectral realm to completely alter like the structure of the area and use it to get to a different place that you couldn't before. Like, there's very little of that stuff in this game.
Less than 5 times, I want to say.
Yeah.
It's really just roll through gate.
Yeah.
And then last question I'm reading from this guy. How did you feel about Raziel dying?
I was conflicted about it, but ultimately I liked it. Especially because, like I said, I fully expected Crystal Dynamics to kill off Kain and have Raziel be the poster boy moving forward. Because, again, that's the character that they created. But I liked the idea of having Kain moving forward. But you could have done something really cool with a direct sequel where like Raziel was almost like your navigator, where he would act like his spirit would like come out of the blade and talk to Kain. You could have done some neat stuff with that, where it's like, even though Kain's by himself, like there's another character that he's talking to. Although I do love, I wish more games did this where it's like first person narration. I love that shit. And especially like hearing Kain, you know, talk about stuff is just really cool. So it's like, he doesn't really need somebody to talk to because he can just talk to himself. But I thought that would have been a neat thing going forward, as if like Raziel was still like a specter that could like come out of the blade and couldn't do anything, but just like, you know, hey, maybe you need to go do this, like that type of thing.
Okay. And from Daniel Clopatry, in a different world where the OG cast would still be alive, how would you finish the Legacy of Kain series? This is just for you. You have one. I forget who. Didn't Renee Odo from Deep Space Nine, didn't he do a voice in Legacy of Kain?
Yeah, he did Janos Audrin, and he did reprise his role. Like, really, I think the only one who's dead that I know of is Tony J, who played the Elder God, and he played Mortanius in the first game. Okay. Although I'm wondering if the voice actor of Mobius also died. And Michael Bell is like getting, I think he might be close to 80 or past 80. So, man, you know, that's rough. But, you know, I think I really like the ending of Defiance. I think this is what I would have wanted. Like, I think the only thing, again, and, you know, not to repeat myself, but I think the only thing that I would have liked to have seen was Kain evolve again into like a closer look to the original vampires. And maybe it's not a thing that he looks like permanently. Again, maybe it's like a Devil Trigger thing where, you know, sometimes he can like assume this form. You know, maybe you could do puzzles with that where it's like, oh, he transforms and now he can fly to this next area instead of just float or something like that.
So you're telling me you want the end of Dirge of Cerberus where you become a god and just shoot things instead, right?
Oh, I don't know. I didn't play that shit.
It's a good game. I think I cut it down in my episode too. I remember it was a good game in 2007.
Yeah, I played a little bit of it for the first time because I collect Final Fantasy games, and I was like, I guess I need to buy Dirge of Cerberus. So I went ahead and bought it because I've you know, the last few years have been like just like kind of like picking up games here and there randomly, and I happened to find a good copy of it at my local used game shop. And I was like, okay, let me test it. Let me make sure this works. And I played the beginning. I was like, this is garbage. This is one of the worst controlling shooting games I have ever seen.
It's really made for one particular type of person. So
yeah, the edgelords that just loved Vincent in Final Fantasy VII.
Mm-hmm. You don't play for the gameplay. You play for the fact that you get to be in the FF7 world and see one cutscene with Cloud in it.
Yeah, and I like Final Fantasy VII, but the fans of Final Fantasy VII have turned me off of it in a pretty big way. I kind of like I didn't play Dirge of Cerberus. I didn't play Crisis Core. I grudgingly watched Advent Children, and it was because it was like I don't care. Like any other Final Fantasy world than this, you should go back and revisit. Like why is it this one? And I know why, but it's one of my least favorite Final Fantasy worlds.
It's not my 8. I'm actually been tempted to go back to 8 because I don't remember anything about 8.
I don't either. Like, it's funny. Like, that game falls out of my brain. So there's 2 podcasts that I listen to that are covering Final Fantasy VIII right now. There's a Square Roots podcast where they just finished it. They did a full playthrough. And then my current favorite podcast is No One Can Know About This, where they just play old Final Fantasy games. And that, if people haven't listened to that, that is a fantastic podcast because they record the actual them playing the game and them talking about it as they're playing the game. But then as they're editing it, they cut in with like comments. So you get like past them playing it and then present day them talking about it after the fact. But wow, like they're playing it right now and they're telling the whole story and stuff. They even do like voices for the characters. And then like when the next episode comes out, I do not remember what happened the previous week. There's something weird about that game where it just falls out of my head like the second that I hear about it. I don't know. I want to revisit it because I think that gameplay wise, it's probably one of the most fun games to play if you know how to actually play it, which is don't play it like any other role playing game.
Don't level up. No,
don't level up. But other than that, like the characters are really boring, and I think the story is just like incoherent.
It's on my list to go back to at some point. It's not my favorite is 6 because that's the best one ever made. But
yeah, yeah. I played through all of Final Fantasy IX remastered last year with a strategy guide open and I've never done that before. And so I got like everything. I did like all of the side stuff. The only thing that I didn't do was beat the final like hidden boss. I tried it a few times, but I just didn't have the right strategy. But that was that was super satisfying. So I want to do that with Final Fantasy VIII because I played that in 1999, finished it in less than a month, and then never touched it again. So I would like to go back to it.
And then some more questions from Jordan Morla. Defiance added some really enjoyable features to this franchise. If you ask me, playing as both Kain and Raziel for the first time was amazing. The animation was so much smoother and polished when it came to finishing moves, combos, reaver attacks, dialogues, and so on. Some may rightly argue that the camera was a pain. It is. Sometimes the level design definitely lacked variety. Still can't deny that the Seraphan Stronghold, Mordor's Mansion, and the Graveyard look pretty amazing. Granted, it had its flaws, but it was a fun game nevertheless. Okay.
Yeah, I agree with that. And again, I think that the level design and the camera stuff, that's kind of just a product of the time. And I really like when you go back to play old games like this, I think it's important to, keep that in mind. Because like 2003, that didn't bother me at all. Camera was fine. The level design was fine because that's what video games were.
They're not anymore.
Yeah, not anymore. That's the thing. And, it's like I find it a little unfair to criticize a game based on modern day standards because it's like, well, they didn't like a lot of the language of video game design that we take for granted now wasn't even written yet, when this game was made.
Fair. And from Micaiah Mance, I'm replaying it. It's my personal favorite, but I understand why people don't like it. It's more old God of War style than the exploration puzzle game of the others are. That's not wrong.
Yeah, I think it splits the difference pretty well. I liked the puzzles. I thought some of them were pretty darn clever, and but then the combat is so much better. It kind of reminds me because Soul Reaver 1, I thought the puzzles were fantastic, but like the combat was terrible. Because it was like because I think there was like pre-analog stick days.
Yeah.
And then Soul Reaver 2, the puzzles were still pretty good and the combat was getting there, but it still wasn't there. And then so this in a lot of ways feels like the culmination of everything where it's like, okay, this is what this series should be. And it sucks that it's the last one.
And this one is kind of just for me. From Gene Harold, about time, been waiting for this. Listen to the others already. It made me smile when I saw that comment. So
yeah, thank you.
Here. We only waited almost 2 years to cover this.
Yeah, but we did the other ones in the meantime. So I think it was worth it.
It's 1940 something. I'll say it at the end, but I can't remember what numbers they all are. But yeah. They're pretty well in between each other.
Yeah, it was like. Not long enough that I would forget everything from the previous one, but just long enough that I was ready to go back.
And from John Hamilton, I have to say everything came full circle. Raziel in the end made up with his father. Kain became the scion, but also defied destiny at any turn. If it wasn't playing out right, he changed it.
Yeah, okay. Totally agree. Like I said, I was very satisfied with how this ended.
And I have one last group to read from Nosgothic Realm.
Oh, I like that.
So I'm just going to I'll read a couple of these. First one from Mark Jorgensen. Just replayed it recently. Love the story. Absolutely despise the camera. Mm-hmm. It's the epitome of if it ain't broke, don't fix it. The combat is proved over the Soul Reaver games, but still tedious, and the combo system never seemed to work at all that well for me. The ending of Raziel's story is bittersweet, but satisfying, but it's a crime that Dark Prophecy was never made. Which one is Dark Prophecy?
I don't know. I wonder if that was like a different name for Dark Sun, or maybe, if there might have been another canceled project that I'm not aware of.
Probably was maybe Dark Sun, and we just a different, because it's probably different. This could be a different country, so it could be a different way they called it. And he said, my favorite part is the Turiel encounter. Agreed. In the end, Kain is still pretty much an ass, but I guess he's trying to be better. All right, and this one from Nicholas Mills. Personally, this was the end of the series, and I've had my closure. I know lots of others haven't, by the way it ended is ambiguous, enough to where it almost doesn't need another game. Yes, there was a planned final game that got canned, but the devs who worked on it have put out details of how it would have ended, so I'm fine. Kind of how I got my closure to Half-Life 3 with the lead writer releasing his planned ending. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, and again, like I think it ends. Like I think it just leaves it the door open for more Adventures of Kain and or games set in Nosgoth. But yeah, I'm fine with it. Although I want the Tomb Raider 2013 Crystal Dynamics team to take a crack at this. And it makes me so mad that they're owned by Square Enix because one, Square Enix probably doesn't even know that they own Legacy of Kain. Two, they made Crystal Dynamics make that Avengers game, and I know it didn't sell. Like it almost broke them last year.
Oh, there's gonna be problems.
So I'm worried that they're just going to close Crystal Dynamics, and then it's like, well, fuck. So this is just never happening, is it? And it's like. Unless they do, I would like them to do maybe what they did with IO, where it's like they allow Crystal Dynamics to purchase themselves or just go independent again, but also take Legacy of Kain with them. And so then maybe we can get it from Crystal Dynamics themselves. But who knows? There may not be anybody left at the Crystal Dynamics who even worked on the series that even cares. They might be just all Tomb Raider all the way right now. Who knows?
I mean, I feel like that's all gone and done with by now. The people who worked on those are probably way different companies.
Yeah.
I mean, someday it might come back. I mean, look how many series come back after a while. People just reboot it with somebody else. Like, so it could happen.
Yeah, I'll never say never because there's been crazier things that have happened, but it seems highly unlikely just based on who owns the IP.
Yeah, because Square Enix likes to sit on IPs.
They do, and then they get angry when they when they sell. Like, I will never stop beating this dead horse about Tomb Raider 2013 sold better than any game in the series other than Tomb Raider 2.
Which one is
Square?
13?
That's the first one in the Crystal Dynamics trilogy, the modern Tomb Raider.
Legend? No. You're talking about the reboot.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Good game.
It's a great game, and it sold like 8 million copies or something like that, which no game in the series had done. Again, or I think it was higher than that. Anyway, no. I looked at the numbers. No game in the series had sold nearly that amount since Tomb Raider 2. And Square was like, "Oh, it was a disaster. Like it didn't sell well." And it's like, what were your fucking expectations for this? Like, the last game that they made only sold 2 million copies.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder if they're probably shitting their pants with the Avengers game then.
Oh, for sure. And yeah, don't get me started on that.
I won't.
I'm gonna play it one day, but
I really want to.
I'm gonna wait until it's on Game Pass.
I'm waiting for it dirt cheap, and I'll buy it.
Yeah.
But from Mustafa Shelby. Probably the biggest video game disappointment of my life, along with Flat Out 3.
Whoa.
Sure Flat Out 3 is.
It's a racing game.
Okay. And from Diebolt McKay, my reaction at the end, a wish never fulfilled, and it has the Oliver twist holding the bowl. More, please. Little gift. And last one I'm going to read, McKinley Yates. Love this game to death. I remember seeing Kain smile before killing Mobius and smiling with him. I've never been so excited to see a character get what they deserve. And finally seeing Kain and Raziel clash was the best. You can literally cut the emotions in that scene with a knife.
So good. Yeah, it like when you see Kain smile and it's like, oh, okay.
Well, he finally gets him after all these years. He's been trying to hunt down Mobius. He finally is in the opportunity to finish him off.
Yeah, so good.
So, yeah. And that brings us now to shelf, stack, or box. Stack was something that, since you weren't here last time we had stack. Stack is the middle ground where something you're not so sure if you want to put on the shelf and you don't want to put in the box, put it on the stack.
Okay, that works.
We decided gray area. And I'll go first. Yeah. I did enjoy this game. I'm glad I played it. I don't need any more Legacy of Kain games. Like, I'm happy the series is over, but I had fun. I mean, it was a hell of a trip playing through this game and being able to play as Kain and Raziel in the same game, and actually a cool Kain for the first time all series. I don't like Blood Omen 1.
Mm-hmm.
So I got my cool Kain, and this was a great game. It's going on the stack because I can't really recommend it to anybody unless you're someone that's played the entire series. I feel like the game doesn't really do it for you. It has to be like you have played Soul Reaver, maybe Blood Omen 2, like Blood Omen 1. You can skip Blood Omen 2, but play enough of the series that this game will really grab you. So it's going on the stack, and I'm really glad I got to play it.
Yeah, that's fair. I'm going to put it on the shelf. I think this is my second favorite game in the series behind Blood Omen because I just adore that game. Like even with the terrible load times and the slowdown and stuff like that, like I still like part of it is like nostalgia, and then part of it is just that I really love like how hard it swings for the time period. And this one, like it's like a close. This and Soul Reaver 1 are like neck and neck for the number 2 slot. And I would recommend it to people. I'd say like if you're curious, like just look up a YouTube like synopsis of the series up to that point, and then jump in because it is the most playable of the entire series. It's harder to go back to the other games, where this one, I think, again, even though the camera is really bad and the level design is confusing, like it's still, if you're comfortable with PlayStation 2 games and you're aware of like their kind of, shortcomings from the era, like I think this one is still playable. That being said, like, going back to like what I would want, I would love them to remaster this one. I saw footage on YouTube of a 4K like fan mod, and it looks so gorgeous. And it's like, at least give me that, guys. Just at least give me that. Like, even if you don't do any other work to it, although you should at least put a mini map and like some other like quality of life stuff. But if you just remaster it and like maybe give me some achievements, I'm there. I'm totally there.
Okay, I can see that, because this game, out of all the series that we've played so far, this one would make the most sense to remaster, I think, other than the story part. Yeah,
because I think PlayStation 2 games you can get away with just a remaster. PS1 games, you have to remake those from the ground up. There's no way that you can just like pretty them up and put them, on a modern console. And well, I actually didn't mind that for Final Fantasy 7, 8, and 9, because that's all I really wanted. I didn't need Final Fantasy 7 Remake, and now that I play it. I really didn't need Final Fantasy VII Remake, but at least I can play it in HD, on my Xbox and PlayStation 4.
This is funny about you and the Final Fantasy VII now that I didn't know.
Yeah, again, it's I don't hate it. I don't hate any of the Final Fantasy games other than 2.
The original 2?
The original 2,
okay.
like the NES one.
I was gonna have words otherwise.
Yeah, no. Final Fantasy 4 is my favorite in the series.
Okay.
But 7 is like decidedly middle of the pack for me. I loved it when it came out, but then the more that I looked at it, I was like, they really took a lot of the charm away from Final Fantasy, didn't they? And like, it's not as interesting to play, is it? And then, and now this is just what it is going forward. Huh. Okay.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that is one of its problems.
Yeah. Also, I'm not as big a fan of the cast as most people are. It's like, I liked Cloud, Tifa, and Barrett, and the rest of them can go hang.
And if you and before we get on the plugs, Julian, you want to say where people can find you at?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Julian_Titus. You can find our show on Twitter at NWPcast, and you can find the show on most places that you listen to podcasts. So go give us a listen. We give you a lot of bang for your buck. Like our episodes, we come out bi-weekly, but our episodes are now usually 3 hours, sometimes 4, and we've just kind of embraced it because our listeners are like, yeah, just give me more. And so that's just what it is now.
It's long.
So if you're not a fan of long podcasts, we might not be for you. But, if you want to spend half of your workday with us, we're there for you.
Hell, I've listened to a 10-hour podcast once, so.
Yeah, I started one that was that, and like it was good. I just didn't finish the whole thing. But I love long podcasts. I listen to podcasts all day at work, so the longer the better.
I can't do that, unfortunately, or I would. Oh, it was Kain and Rince. They did a 10-hour, like, multi-part edited podcast talking about games of the year that they played that year.
Oh, nice. Yeah,
so
I listen to Kain and Rince if it's a game that I care about. That's kind of the way that I listen to games my mom found also. Yeah. It's like, I don't care about this
People
game.
do, too. I found out, yeah. If you don't care about the game, people aren't going to listen to the episode. I found out, so.
Yeah. Sometimes I want to learn more about the game, even though I don't care about it. But sometimes it's like, okay, I still don't care.
That's why we publish 2 to 3 episodes a week now. Usually 2. I do one week a month where I do 3, usually. Yeah. Because I record so fucking much. I'm like, I gotta get this shit out or I'll just sit on it for years.
Yeah.
And if you enjoyed this episode, we have covered the whole series of Blood Omen Legacy of Kain with episode 19. Legacy of Kain Soul Reaver episode 40. My God, it feels like a long time ago. And Soul Reaver 2 was episode 77. And then Blood Omen 2 is episode 91. So if you want to get the rest of the series, that's where you can find it. And we might I'm going to say it in here, so I have to do it. I'm thinking something that when we finish series on the show, we're going to do like a retrospective where we talk about the entire series as a whole and about the games.
Yeah.
We might do that. We'll see. Probably will. Probably just be me and Julian again this week. He's the only person from the beginning that's still here with me.
I get it. Michael Hughes doesn't want to podcast with me. It's fine.
He doesn't want to cover Legacy. He doesn't like Legacy Kain that much. Because Blood Omen 1 was all 4 of us. Soul Reaver was, I think, 3 of us? Or it might have been all 4.
I think it was 3.
And then Soul Reaver 2 was 3 of us. Blood Omen 2 was me and you because Mike was sick and he had joined the show. And then this one we finished off with me and you. So we're the only 2 that survived.
Yep.
And so if you enjoyed the show, definitely go check out all their other material. We have tons of episodes. We do comics. We do movies. We're going through the MCU, and we are getting there. We're in phase 3. We're getting near the end of that dumbass project I had a year ago idea. It's a hell of an undertaking trying to cover all those movies. I don't ever need to see them again once I finish the series. Not for a year or 2.
Dude, I have watched like the whole thing like so many times. Like
I love them. I'm ready to be done once I finish.
I think when I did my rewatch after Homecoming came out, I was like, okay, I'm good for a while. But then I'm like, oh, but I should just like rewatch Phase 1, or now I'm just like, I should just rewatch let me just watch like all the Avengers movies. Like they are some of my favorite movies of the last like 15 years, and I know they've only been out for 10, but like going further back, it's like I adore those movies. Like there is not a single one that I don't like, and I get more from them every time that I watch them. Like I saw Endgame in the theater 5 times, and I was still finding stuff. I was like, oh, I didn't catch that before.
I'm looking forward to I haven't rewatched it in theaters, and we're coming up to that. We're on Ant-Man next in our watch order because we record them way ahead of time.
God, Ant-Man. Oh, Ant-Man's so good. Like, I need more Louis. I don't know. Did you watch? Are you watching WandaVision, or did you watch WandaVision?
I watched WandaVision, and I'm watching Falcon.
Okay, so there's been a lot of talk about them doing a spinoff with Darcy and Agent Wu.
Yeah,
and I am all for that, but they need to also have Luis and his ex-con business as like the backup people, like the people in the chair. Like, I need all those characters just like being wacky, and oh man, it'd be so good.
All right. And if you enjoyed those, definitely. And please follow. I want to give a shout out to our awesome intro and outro, courtesy of Bobby, a.k.a. Mike Stoney from ZP Bite the Bullet. Song of the Cool Kid Squad. Definitely go give him a listen to on his YouTube. And also, we have a Patreon finally. It only took me almost 2 years, but we have a Patreon. There'll be a link in the show notes. We have no incentives yet because I don't know what we're doing yet. I just decided to make a Patreon. So if you want to throw me $1, just throw me $1. We'll eventually come up with more incentives once I figure out what I want to do with it. So definitely go do that. And please follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and on YouTube. We are on YouTube now. So give us a subscribe. We finally got a custom URL. It only took 150 subscribers instead of the normal 100 it says you need. But hey, we're there. So you can find us in all those places, and we will see you guys next time. Bye, everybody.
Bye.